Ladies and gentlemen, we all make choices in life that we enjoy in the short term, but which end up having a negative impact on us in the long run. I'm living proof of that. I had a few hours of fun at a bachelorette party, which has ruined my marriage. I don't know how to move on. My husband is very angry, and I don't know how to pacify him. My name is Hillary, and I am a 28-year-old woman. My husband Philip is a 27-year-old. I'm 28. I've been married for 3 years and we don't have kids yet. I spotted Philip's profile on Tinder and we started chatting. We talked for a few weeks about shared interests and laughs. Eventually, we figured why not meet face to face. We set up a date, and I remember walking into the restaurant. I hadn't dated in a while, so I was feeling pretty nervous. Philip was sitting at a corner table and he flashed me a friendly smile, which instantly put me at ease. We said hi, laughed about the menu's quirky choices, and used that to break the ice. The place had this kind of. The restaurant had a cozy vibe, which made our conversations flow naturally from childhood memories to favorite movies and the whole online dating scene. As the night went on, I got to know Philip better. He has an easygoing charm, a genuine kindness, and a sense of humor that just clicked with mine. We dug into the appetizers, and with each one, we exchanged glances, and there was this unspoken connection growing between us. When it was time to say goodbye, there was this subtle shift in the air, and I knew that I was definitely seeing this man again. For our second date, Philip and I decided to ditch the usual dinner and a movie routine, and opted for something different. We decided to check out an art gallery. I'm not an expert, but I thought it would be a fun way to get to know each other better. As we looked at the artwork, we chatted about everything from our favorite artists to our least favorite pieces. The conversations were more in-depth than your average small talk. It was like the paintings were giving us an excuse to peel back layers and get to know each other on a whole new level. Philip's insights into art and life in general were really interesting. It wasn't just about the colors and shapes on the walls, it was about sharing perspectives. We talked about aspirations and the little quirks that make us who we are. The art gallery was quiet, and people were looking at the art in a thoughtful way. We found ourselves discussing everything from childhood dreams to the weird and wonderful things that make us tick. It was surprising how a collection of art pieces could act as a catalyst for. After absorbing all the creativity, we decided to keep the night alive with a spontaneous visit to a nearby food truck. No fancy dinners, just some street food goodness. The atmosphere changed from the refined elegance of the gallery to the laid-back vibe of the food truck. The food truck added a cool contrast to the evening. We sat on a bench, sharing bites of our unconventional meal choices, and the laughter flowed just as freely as it did in the gallery. What struck me about that night was how easily we transitioned from one setting to another. It wasn't about impressing each other with our knowledge of art or fine dining. It was all about enjoying the experience together and finding joy in trying something new. I realized that Philip and I could find common ground not just in our tastes, but in our ability to appreciate the beauty in unconventional places. After dating for a while, we decided to take the next step and move in together in our new place. Philip and I got stuck in and started tackling the nitty-gritty of living together. The mornings were a hilarious challenge when it came to bathroom scheduling, and the kitchen was like a fusion of our cooking styles and tastes, amid our laughter and occasional spats. Getting the hang of shared responsibilities was a joint effort. We tackled chores together and hashed out decisions about furniture, and we didn't always see eye to eye, but we learned from our arguments. We also had some great moments together, like lazy Sunday mornings with breakfast in bed and quiet nights on the couch. I was surprised but delighted when Philip proposed. It was a moment I'll never forget. We were at a beach we both love, where we'd had some great times. The day started with a feeling that something special was in the air. As we walked along the beach, as the sun set, we found ourselves at a spot with candles and blankets, which was pretty romantic. Philip started pouring his heart out, talking about all the good stuff we've been through. His words were a mix of he showed me he was vulnerable and honest, painting a picture of us facing life's adventures side by side. Then, with a glint in his eye, he got down on one knee, pulled out a little box, and opened it to reveal a shiny ring. The world seemed to freeze as he popped the big question, and I felt a whole bunch of emotions, happiness, excitement. It was a big, beautiful beginning. The proposal was simple but special, just like us. It wasn't about some fancy setup, it was about Philip choosing me for the long haul, with happy tears in my eyes. I said yes, and Philip and I hugged, sealing the deal on a future together. In the moments that followed, I remember meeting Philip's parents for the first time. It felt like a big deal, a mix of excitement and nerves. We decided to hang out at Philip's family home, a comfortable spot filled with memories and that homely smell you get from good cooking. As I walked up to the front door, I was feeling a bit nervous despite Philip saying his parents were really nice. I couldn't help feeling a little uneasy, but as soon as the door opened, his mom and dad gave me a warm welcome and made me feel right at home. The house was decorated with family photos and had a lovely, welcoming atmosphere. The house was filled with delicious food. Philip's parents were fantastic hosts, making the atmosphere relaxed and ideal for conversation. We sat around the dining table, which was loaded with homemade treats, and shared stories about our backgrounds, interests, and experiences. Philip listened attentively to his parents' stories. His parents shared stories about his childhood, which added a new layer of understanding. I got to see how the family interacted, catching on to their inside jokes and seeing the love they had for each other. It was clear that family was a big deal for Philip, and getting the invite felt pretty special. I got to know Philip's parents really well. We had a lot in common, and they respected me a lot, which made me feel really good. I wasn't worried about making a good impression at all. We had a great chat about life, love, and what the future might hold when it was time to leave. It was a real pleasure meeting Philip's parents. They were so welcoming, and it was a great insight into Philip's background. Planning the wedding was a roller coaster of excitement and dreams. And there was a lot of stress involved, from dreaming up the big day to dealing with unexpected hiccups. It really put our love and patience to the test. In the early days, we were really excited about our dream wedding. Late-night talks revolved around themes, venues, and who would make it to the guest list. Friends and family were really supportive, which gave us it was great at first, but when we started putting plans in place, it became a lot more stressful. Picking a venue was a challenge because we had different ideas and our family members had their own expectations. It took a lot of back and forth to find a solution that suited everyone. Money was also a big issue. Our dream celebration bumped up against the reality of wedding costs, talking about priorities, how many guests to invite, and finding the sweet spot between grand and simple. This became a daily thing, sorting out the guest list, which sounded fun at first but got tricky. Balancing the desire for a big celebration with keeping it intimate meant making tough calls that sometimes tugged at the heartstrings. Unexpected issues popped up, from problems with vendors to family conflicts and the pressure of meeting everyone's expectations. Each challenge tested our relationship, forcing us to tackle things together and rely on each other. Then came the nitty-gritty. There were lots of little details to think about, like dress fittings, flower choices, and food tastings. We had to manage our time well and be dedicated to the wedding preparations. But despite all the chaos, there were some magical moments. Picking our vows, imagining our first dance, and thinking about the lifetime of memories we'd create kept us going. Our friends and family were with us every step of the way. From start to finish, our wedding day was a whirlwind of emotions, laughter, and heartfelt moments that made it feel like our love story was coming to life. From the early rush of getting ready with my bridesmaids to the late-night party, every part of the day added another chapter to our story. The morning started with a mix of excitement and nerves. While getting ready, there was this light-hearted vibe. The atmosphere was happy and relaxed, with lots of laughter and stories. The air smelled like flowers, and there was a lovely feeling of excitement as everything fell into place. The venue was decorated in our favorite colors and with personal touches, which made it feel like a visual representation of our journey. The aisle where I was about to walk into a life together felt like the symbolic. As we chose our families and friends, the atmosphere became cozy and familiar. The ceremony itself was emotional, and saying our vows and swapping rings felt like time standing still. We chose our words carefully, and they were full of sincerity, creating a special space where our commitment unfolded. We felt the love and support from our folks and friends, gave us a big hug, and then it was time for the party. The reception hall was buzzing with music, laughter, and the sound of toasting glasses. Our first dance as a married couple and the heartfelt speeches made the day even more special. The food made with love wasn't just a treat for our taste buds but for our hearts too. In the midst of we also took a few moments to reflect on the journey that led us here, the hurdles we faced, and the amazing people around us. The dance floor became our personal stage, surrounded by the smiling faces of those who had been there through it all. As the night unfolded, you could feel a sense of accomplishment and the start of something new. We had a great time on our wedding day, sharing laughs, happy tears, and tight hugs. It was a wonderful way to celebrate our love and look back on the moments that shaped our journey together. We also got to look forward to many more memories ahead. After all the wedding craziness, we decided to go on our honeymoon straight away. We picked a chill spot, a tropical island with beaches. We also brought along some greenery for some R&R and adventure as a newlywed duo. The journey was full of excitement. As we boarded the plane, we were already itching to escape to the secret paradise we'd chosen. When we arrived at the resort, it felt like we'd hit the jackpot. The smell of flowers and the sound of waves made it feel like a luxury cocoon. Our room had this amazing view of the blue waters. The perfect setting for our private retreat days on the island was a combination of laid-back vibes and exploration. Our mornings were spent chilling on the beach, sipping cocktails and enjoying the freedom of having no plans. Our afternoons were filled with snorkeling, finding cool spots, and soaking up the local atmosphere. In the evenings we enjoyed romantic dinners under the stars, tasting the island's delicious cuisine. We enjoyed delicious food, shared laughter, glances and quiet moments under the moon. These memories will stay with us forever. One highlight was a sunset cruise. The sky turned into a crazy mix of colors as the sun set, and sailing along the coast hand in hand felt like our own little magic moment. Our honeymoon was also a time to talk and connect. Long walks on the beach turned into heart-to-hearts. To be continued. We had some great chats where we shared our dreams and plans, without the usual daily pressures. We enjoyed spending time together, without any distractions as the days went by. The locals were really friendly, which added a special touch to our trip. Their stories, shared during tours and market visits, gave us a real insight into the place and its people. As we left the island, it was time to say goodbye to our honeymoon. But the memories stayed with us. When we got back to reality, we found ourselves back home, settling into married life with Philip. I decided to embrace the role of a stay-at-home wife. At the end of the day, after a few years of marriage, my good friend Angela dropped the news that she'd accepted her boyfriend's proposal. She was really happy and excited about their wedding plans. Angela had been a rock during my wedding, so I was happy to be invited to her wedding as a bridesmaid. I remembered all the times Angela had been there for me, so I was happy to help out and be a bridesmaid in her wedding. It was a great experience, from helping with the wedding preparations to fitting dresses and organizing a bachelorette party. We shared lots of memories and grew closer over the years. However, there was one hiccup on the day. Angela was always the one who brought the fun and good vibes to our group, so it was no surprise when she suggested a wild night out at a club for her bachelorette party. I was totally on board, especially since I wasn't able to go out as much after I got married to Philip. I love my husband, but he's more on the steady and reliable side, not exactly the party animal. So the thought of hitting the club again had me genuinely excited. I made a deal with myself to keep things easy, not go overboard on drinks, just soak in the vibe. Of course, I didn't tell Philip about the club part. I figured if I did, he'd probably veto the whole plan since I told him I was going out with the girls for a night of fun to celebrate Angela's bachelorette. He didn't ask many questions, which was perfect for my plan. Once we got to the club, I quickly changed my mind about not drinking much. I tried to keep it on the down low, soaking up the good times with my friends and getting back into the club scene after a while. I had a great time, even though there were a few new things I wasn't used to. You know how it goes. A few minutes in, my friends started encouraging me to have more drinks. They said it was a joyous occasion, and I wanted to join in the fun while staying somewhat sober to avoid any silly moves. So, against my initial plan, I gave in and started having a few more drinks. As is often the case, one drink led to another, And before I knew it, I was on a roll, feeling all the good vibes. I kept sipping, and, well, I went a bit overboard. Next thing you know, I found myself doing some pretty silly stuff. My friends and I were deep into the whole drunk scene, daring each other to pull off ridiculous stunts. It was like, hey, go peck that guy, or, why not? I didn't ask that guy for his number. It was one of those nights. My friends threw in another dare, go over to some random guy and dance with him. I figured why not? It seemed harmless enough, just a bit of dancing. Well, it wasn't as harmless as I thought. Things took a turn, and I ended up grinding on this guy. It only got worse. My friends cheered me on while I ended up groping, kissing, twerking, and grinding on a random guy. I kept at it for a while, grinding and dancing with different guys throughout the night until I got bored and moved on to another. The next morning, I woke up with the craziest headache. Despite the hangover, the memories of the previous night hit me, and I felt horrified. I thought about telling Philip, but I hesitated though. I'd already lied about the whole girls' night thing. Besides, I hadn't done anything wrong. I never went all the way with the guy, so I figured it wasn't worth telling anyone. It turned out I wasn't the only one having second thoughts. The girls and I made a pact: what happens at the club stays at the club. We promised not to tell anyone. Fast forward to Angela's wedding, and it was an absolute dream. The whole event was breathtaking, and we had a blast. The food was excellent, and the atmosphere was fantastic. In short, it was a beautiful celebration. A few weeks after Angela's wedding, life was going on as usual. The girls and I weren't catching up as often due to our busy schedules, but we had an outing planned for next week, so that was something to look forward to. I was at home when Philip walked in, a bit irked and distant. I figured maybe someone at the grocery store had rubbed him the wrong way, so I didn't think much of it as the days went by with Philip keeping up the standoffish attitude. It started to bother me more. His cold demeanor persisted for about 3 days. He avoided eye contact, and I couldn't help but wonder what I might have done to upset him. Eventually, I decided it was time to confront him and get to the bottom of it. When I mustered the courage to ask Philip if I had done something to upset him, he flat out denied it. It was pretty clear he was lying. Given his icy behavior, I pressed him again, and all he did was laugh it off. Frustration was building, so I told him to cut the nonsense and just tell me what was going on. That's when he dropped the bomb. He couldn't understand how he was supposed to smile at me when everyone in town was labeling me as a hoe. Our town was one of those small, tight-knit communities. In tight-knit communities like ours, where everyone knows everyone, gossip spreads like wildfire. I was genuinely shocked when Philip mentioned that people in town were calling me names. I racked my brain trying to think of anything that might have caused such rumors, but apart from the club incident, nothing else came to mind. What I found most puzzling was how details from the club, which was a bit of a distance away, had made their way into the ears of folks in our town. Small towns have their drawbacks, and the speed at which rumors travel is definitely one of them. Philip didn't even have to ask if the rumors in town were true. I was pretty much giving myself away with my shocked expression. I was tempted to explain that I hadn't done anything wrong and even asked him what exactly people were saying. Philip was not just angry, but also more irritated than ever. He told me people in town were calling me names because a video of me at the strip club with the video had been leaked, and no one knew which girl was behind it. I was on the verge of tears. I knew I had made a huge mistake. I was worried that Philip might never forgive me. Not only had I lied about what the girls and I were up to that night, but I had also cheated on him. I tried to defend myself, emphasizing that I hadn't slept with the guy. But Philip wasn't having it. He said that just grinding on the guy was enough to qualify as cheating. I pleaded with him, explaining that I was drunk and wouldn't have done something like that if I had been sober. Philip dropped the pretense of being okay. I realized that the cold treatment over the past 3 days was his way of waiting for me to ask so he could unleash his frustration. He was waiting for me to ask so he could get it off his chest. He didn't hold back. He demanded that I leave the house and said we were heading for a divorce. He called me a loose woman and said the people in town were right. I was in tears. I apologized. I felt utterly helpless, with no words to defend myself. It became clear that Philip wasn't open to listening, so I gathered my belongings and left, sobbing. I ended up going back to my parents' house, seeking solace and a temporary place to stay. My parents were disappointed, and it wasn't any different when Philip's parents got I was really regretful about the situation. And my parents could tell. They tried to talk to Philip even though he was still angry. At first he didn't want to, but after a few days, he was ready to listen. When he did, he said that forgiveness was impossible. He said that he would never forget what he saw of my wife with another man. My parents suggested couples therapy, but Philip said that he didn't want to. He told my parents that he couldn't forgive her. He said that seeing a video of his wife with another man would be forever etched in his mind, and that he'd never forget it. My parents suggested couples therapy, but he said that wouldn't help. He said he couldn't fix the damage and wasn't interested in reconciling, even though I was crying and begging him to reconsider. He wasn't having any of it and told me it was over. It's kind of messed up, but it's oddly comforting to know I'm not the only one facing backlash. Angela, who I heard that just got married, is dealing with her leaked video too. It's like a domino effect, messing with relationships left and right. Some are on the verge of breakups, others are trying couples therapy, and some are heading for divorce. Philip didn't hold back. He emptied our joint account, taking almost everything since he was the sole provider. I was a stay-at-home wife. At the moment, I'm just waiting to hear from Philip. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and Philip left me with very little. I'm just waiting for the divorce papers he promised to send over. Dealing with Philip's parents has been tough. They reached out, and their disappointment is palpable. The gossips in this town have been relentless, with snide comments coming at me from all directions. The divorce is officially done. I'm seriously considering leaving this place for a fresh start. Sharing my story is a way to find some peace of mind. If someone out there is contemplating cheating, I hope they stumble upon this and make the wise decision to steer clear of that path. Thanks for listening.